This is Dolany TV. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. My great pleasure to have you along as we get set up to discuss what has actually been a very busy day in Edmonton Oilers land. It's been a pretty wild one. Started off with a second round selection and a trade to the Detroit Red Wings. Plus, we qualified some RFAs today and all around kind of got a better picture of what our July 1st is going to be capable of going into Saturday. Friends, I'm Tyson. Welcome to the channel. Right now, as I am still getting the new setup geared up here and tweaking the graphics and trying to change things up a little bit, I would invite you right now. I would normally have a fancy graphic. That's where I'm going with this. But I invite you right now to consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolany TV and sticking around for what's going to be a busy July long weekend and then what's going to be a quiet but fun summer. I promise you we're going to have a little bit of mixture of content here throughout the summer. I promise you it's not going to be what you're traditionally used to unless you've been around through the more lean years of the channel. But we'll always be number one covering the Edmonton Oilers this summer, you and I, as we go through what is going to be an exciting offseason, as I think the excitement built quite a bit last year. Well, now the excitement's going to build yet again this summer towards an Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup run in 24. So, what do we know of today's deals? Well, number one, the Oilers busting it wide open on the draft floor finally is making some selections, but also stealing headlines with a one that hurt. All right, I think that trade to Detroit today hurt for a lot of wrong reasons because Yamamoto's gone, Kostin's gone, and we are not sure if or when we'll ever get something from the Detroit Red Wings for those two players. Obviously, yes. Can you justify the cap space saved for Yamamoto, giving us that picture we'll talk about later in the video? Absolutely, right? Number one, a Yamamoto trade had to happen. That was the only way this offseason is going to play out the way it needs to, because Evan Bouchard's contract is the next big domino to fall at this point, whether it happens before July 1st or after. Connor Brown happening on July 1st really isn't going to affect much. But giving up Kostin, who I think the revelations over the past week have just kind of unfolded to the point that it had to happen, I think is definitely the situation. The Oilers had to trade Kostin, but now all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where not only are you down Kailer Yamamoto in your lineup, but you're also down Kostin. Two guys who I think I saw it on Twitter somewhere today. Yamamoto's a guy who, had he been bigger, you love the way he plays, and if with a bigger body, he would absolutely have been an amazing player for the Edmonton Oilers. Whether it be injuries that have slowed him down, or whether it just be size and being figured out at this level of competition has slowed him down, whatever you want to say, it's tough, right? And obviously you love the guy Yamamoto is, you love the character he was, all that, and that is doubly so true for Kostin, right? Kostin is that player that plays like Yamamoto, but bigger, fights, does all the things right, scored goals for us. But the more you look at it for Kostin is the KHL deal that was rumored to happen with Omsk. Obviously, that played a big role in everything that evolved this week. Secondary too, because of that threat, I think Kostin's agent kind of played it that the Oilers should pay him more, and instead the Oilers decided to deal him because why go out of your way to deal with a guy who has an offer already on the table elsewhere and is using it as leverage when the Oilers have a very limited budget? This was a very shrewd, very cap constrained, very calculated move by Ken Holland here, shipping off Kostin. Because I think from everything any of us have read today since he's been traded to Detroit, is it seems like if Detroit wants to keep him, they're going to keep him. That's the end all be all, is they'll throw whatever number they have to. And we're not talking $4 or $5 million. We're talking $2 million that the Oilers just simply could not afford for a depth forward who Jay Woodcroft liked to play about 8 minutes a night, right? That's the end of the day. Is you can love Kostin to death, as I did, for what he did for the Oilers from the turn well, I guess pretty much New Year's 2023. It was a couple days before then, but New Year's 2023 to the end of the season, being a playoff hero a couple of times. You loved what the guy brought to the lineup. Problem is, when you got a guy playing 8 minutes a night, the way the coach runs the lineup, and you can fault Woody here for that too if you want. That's fair game. Hey, I'm not going to tell you what to say. But if the situation dictates that you're going to have to pay him $2 million to play 8 minutes a night, I can get Brad Malone to do that. And you know what? There's a couple other guys on the farm team. There's a couple of other guys out there in the NHL. A name that I kind of got thrown back my way. You'll probably guess the source on that one if you're familiar with the channel and you're familiar with kind of my fandom of the Oilers and the Bakersfield Condors. Josh Curry, who has kind of disappeared overseas over the past few seasons, but now looking for offers, or should be looking for offers in North America now that his deal overseas has come to an end, right? Like, there's guys, budget, minimum dollar guys, $775 that you can find to fill Klim Kostin's role, and they will do the same thing. Will they shoot 20% and score a bunch of goals? Probably not, but again, in the regular season, you're going to find it okay. And in the playoffs, if you have guys that are defensively reliable, instead of scoring a couple extra goals in the playoffs, you're probably going to win some games as long as you give up a few less goals. So that's where the Kostin move, calculated at best, and it is the best case scenario because you don't give up a lot of money to keep a guy around who was leveraging to stay, but not the right way, right? He wasn't trying to take a team-friendly deal by any means. So the trades today, like I said, they hurt for all the wrong reasons because fan favorites, Yamamoto and, of course, Kostin, two guys that played the right way, approached the game the right way. Obviously, Yamamoto just didn't have the body to do it here in Edmonton, and Kostin just kind of shipped himself out more or less. So that kind of sucks to see, but it is what it is. Now, secondarily, the Oilers on the RFA front qualified everybody who they needed to, right? They didn't have to qualify Kostin because they shipped him out to Detroit, and the trade was for future considerations. I never said that, but you kind of get where we're going. Not much there. So that's where we're at with that. Is all the RFAs were qualified. The of note player in that list is Noah Philp, but it was reported earlier this week that the Oilers are trying to keep the door open for him in case he has a change of heart or if situations dictate that he can come back to hockey. Noah Philp, you might remember, a couple weeks back, same day as TSN 1260 shut down, announced his retirement from hockey and moving back to southern Alberta to kind of be with his family. So we're not 100% sure, nor do I really want to speculate what's going on there. But I feel as though if the Oilers are leaving the door open for him, it's something where if something changes drastically in the next few months, there is a chance that he kind of comes back and returns to the Oilers organization. And I think the Oilers are kind of hopeful of that because of the role that he is suspected to fill over the next 1 or 2 years. And of course, I guess the organization loves this guy, right? So, you know what? If he's going through a tough time or something in his life is kind of sideways right now, it's almost even just the right thing to do of give him that option if he wants it. So that's great to see from Ken Holland and the management staff there as well. So that's the RFA front, which brings us to the salary cap front. You clear out Yamamoto today, and that allows you to have a total cap hit available on July 1st, pending any other moves happening later tonight or tomorrow, of $8.17 million. So $8,170,000 is available below the salary cap of $83.5 million for the Edmonton Oilers going into July 1st, Saturday morning, as we get set up for the start of the new NHL season, I guess technically, right? July 1st when contracts expire and contracts get signed. That's where we begin, right? Is everything starts and you look at Bouchard, McLeod, rumored to be taking team-friendly deals. There's really no one else of note. I guess I could tell you which RFAs got qualified today. There's really, you only have to worry about the top two because Ryan McLeod, Evan Bouchard, NHL roster players. Raphael Lavoie, I kid you not, he will be an NHL player this season for the majority of it, whether it's at the start or whether it's at the end. He will be an NHL player for the Oilers for the majority of the season. Noah Philp, as I mentioned, that is, of course, with conditions. And Olivier Rodrigue, who, I guess to take a 5-second break on Rodrigue here, is a guy that we were not sure what he was going to be facing going into this offseason. And the Oilers have, by way of qualifying him, retained his services for yet another year. The Oilers like what they've got in the goalie pipeline. It was just a matter of fit for Rodrigue over the course of the year, and it appears that Fanti, Rodrigue, and of course Calvin Pickard are going to split the time in the AHL crease this year with Condors. That, I think, I've talked to some people in Bakersfield a little bit on this, is it seems to be the plan is just kind of have a veteran guy like Calvin Pickard around and then just kind of work them from there. It's worked well in the past, and I wonder again if it'll work here for the Oilers as they develop two more guys. Drafting another goalie today, we'll kind of get all about that later in a video. Obviously, I'm not the number one expert on draft picks by any means. I kind of learn these guys as the next season develops, so unfortunately, I don't really have much to report on the guys we drafted today, but just kind of covering off the big news of the day. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now. Is 8.17 is the salary cap number you need to be aware of for the Edmonton Oilers right now. So keep that in mind, 8.17. And that should allow the Oilers to bridge both Bouchard, McLeod, sign Lavoie to an $850 contract probably. I mean, I don't know if he gets more than league minimum because the roster needs to be as cheap as possible going into opening night. Again, though, the Oilers can do literally whatever they want this offseason because they are right there on the cusp. They need one or two pieces, and I think it was Holland today saying they're expecting to add a couple depth forwards, right? In that, why pay Kostin $2 million when you can pay $775, and obviously go out there and add probably another depth defenseman as well. The defense pretty well sorted. I think you just run it back same as last year and away you go. That's kind of how things would dictate out. The option for a guy like Eric Johnson, I think, is there. The option for figuring out Vinny Desharnais in a full-time role is there. And just really the communication between Jay Woodcroft and Ken Holland this year going into this season. 11-7 full-time, 12-6 the majority. What do we want to do here? What's our B in case of injury? There's a whole bunch of things the Oilers have to consider going into the season. Ken Holland's made a statement saying he wants to accrue cap space all year long, so no more LTIR. So you're probably to do that playing with a roster of 22, which still gives you options. You're able to rotate a guy or two in every night, but at the end of the day, it all depends on how Jay Woodcroft wants to run his bench. So I think Jay Woodcroft and Ken Holland have a pretty good working relationship. It's been working. It's been getting results in Edmonton the past 2 years. So I'd assume that our free agent moves on July 1st will be dictated more so by roster need and roster usage, more so than positional need and kind of positional usage there, right? Right. If you can get two wingers for the roster at $775, they're going to be impact players, namely thinking Connor Brown, namely thinking another depth guy who might be on the market, who knows. And then you can go out there and get a defenseman as well who can be reliably sound for about $800K. Yeah, you're probably going to do that, whether it be a left hand or a right hand shot. It's just a matter of going out there and finding those roster fits, guys that Jay Woodcroft can deploy in situations, as opposed to, man, we really need a right D to shore up in case Vinny Desharnais is incapable, because you've got Philip Broberg, right? The back end's easy. Do you really need more centers? Probably not. So you've got Derek Ryan, you've got Ryan McLeod, you've got, of course, Draisaitl and McDavid. So you've got enough to do it, and you probably have the situation. But we've heard a lot about, and I'm sorry I'm rambling on. There's a lot to kind of digest here, and I just want to get it out because it's already 6:29 on a Thursday evening. But you just essentially look at that need for the Oilers, and you want to tone down McDavid and Draisaitl's minutes, but you also need to kind of look at usage of the roster. And to do that, you need penalty killers. You need power play guys. You need guys that can kind of alleviate even 30 seconds in the first period, a minute and a half in the second, run the horses in the third, but you chop down Draisaitl, McDavid even 50 seconds a night, and this roster gets a little more interesting in terms of its usage because you have guys that are reliable for those jobs. So that's where I'm looking. I'm wondering what that'll do for the Oilers going into July 1st. But hey, right now, just focus on the job at the draft was successful, right? We got rid of Yamamoto. We cleaned up the Kostin situation. We have cap space and we have qualified our RFAs. We drafted some kids. And now we look forward to Saturday morning when yours truly will be banging out the videos, hopefully, as we go along, starting off on Free Agent Frenzy. Friends, I'm Tyson, this is Stolany TV. Thank you so much for being along this evening. It was a long episode. 16 minutes of your time. There was a lot to get through. I don't know how I'm going to title this, but hey, you already know how I did because you're watching after the fact. I am up on out of here. Enjoy your Thursday. We'll talk tomorrow night, and I will catch you then.